Hello and welcome to the pre-show for the Profit Visibility Lab. My name is Jewel T. Lenard. I'd like to welcome you. I'm so glad you are here. We're going to get started right at the top of the hour at 2 p.m. with our topic for today. We'll give you a peek in the pre-show here. Our topic is the data defense strategy, and we're talking about how to keep your data safe. This is not cybersecurity. It's not about IT. It's about how do you and I, as founder operators, protect our data on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm excited about this topic, and I've had some real life situations that prompted me to want to share this with you. So I hope to see you over on YouTube. This is our Scope Block Sentinel is our visioneer here in the Crystal Ops universe, and he is the archetype who is helping us to understand how important it is to establish those boundaries for business. So we're going to learn a little bit more from him inside the show. We're going to start again right at 2 p.m. And also, I encourage you to join via YouTube. The link is going to be right underneath in the comments. And this is for acknowledgement and also being able to see your comments, because only public profiles on LinkedIn can actually be seen and heard within the streaming platform. Okay. So with that, go ahead, grab a coffee, a notebook, and head on over to YouTube and go ahead and comment within YouTube where you are watching from, whether this is live or on the replay. And I'll see you right at top of the hour at 2 o'clock. My mic was off. Okay, I'm not going to start over. And maybe I will start over. You know what? I will. I'm sorry. My mic was not on. Missed my whole story. Do, 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 do. Today's focus. I'm not going to share my story over again. So I wanted to start off with a little story, and that is that this happened to me this week. I went to um, I had my mobile phone. I had just done a video that I had loaded up to LinkedIn. I put on it I use captions on my phone to add captions to the video. And so I had uploaded this video to LinkedIn. When I went back to check, I realized that I had not uploaded the proper version. So I went back to my phone expecting to see it there, and it was not there. And so what I learned is that and this is on iPhone. I don't know what it does for Android or other phones, but on iPhone, and this is a new phone, so this is default setting, your photos are not on your phone. You do not have custody. They're in your drive, but they're not on your phone. So the reason this came up is because my iCloud data had, I say a lot of files. So my iCloud data had expired, or I needed to renew and upgrade. And so it wasn't there. And I never thought about this before, that it's possible that my content would not be there. So after I peeled myself off the ceiling, I did some additional research, just looking over data security in general to say, what are the guidelines? Does anyone talk about this? And I did not find anything. Now, luckily, I did find my video in another place, and I'm posting it back up on Friday, the Founders Need Love version. But the point is that there are many things that we use as founders in our business that are not protected. And if something were to happen, we would be without them, right? So let's talk about, so today's focus, we're going to talk about protecting what you've already built, okay? Before you scale, because you're only going to scale what you have and who you are, right? So if you have a system that is not secure, if you don't have boundaries, if you don't have structure in place to protect your data, then it's just going to multiply when you scale, right? Or as you are scaling. You may already be familiar with this and go, oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. So that's what we're talking about. What data defense is not paranoia. We're not talking about, oh my gosh, someone's going to steal my data. No, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about over engineering some intricate folder structure in order to be able to run our business. We're not talking about that. We're also not talking about expensive tools. You don't need a whole SaaS hookup for this, but we are talking about creating a foundational maturity so that our business is structured to work the way we do. That's the point. So what you'll walk away with today is, by the end of today, you will know where your business is most exposed to data loss, what data you need to back up or separate or lock down, and also some tactical strategies on creating a data defense foundation for your business. Okay. What to bring for this one? If you got the reminder, nothing for this one. But what I do encourage you to do is to think about all the places where you have data and all the people who have access to your data that are helping you. So maybe you have a VA, maybe you have a couple people working with your paid ads, maybe you have someone doing graphic design for you. Where are all of your assets? If you wanted to pull an asset from something someone did for you a year ago, would you be able to put your hands on it? Just kind of think about where those things are as I go through this. Why this matters is most founders don't think about data protection until it's too late. The file's been deleted. The images are lost. You can't find it. And typically when something like this happens, the damage is already done. You were looking for it because you needed it, not because you just happened to think you want to check something out. And so that's additional stress. You need something, you went to look for it, it's not there. Where is it? It's a whole level of stress that you and I do not need, right? So that's why it matters. This is not about cybersecurity. This is not IT. Okay, we're not talking about IT department. We're talking about operational protection. How do you operate on a day-to-day in a way that keeps your data protected? Okay, in a way that and accessible when you need it to be accessible. Okay, that's what we're talking about here. Now, the founder reality is that files live everywhere. Look, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about me on my or before I implemented a strategy on my phone, on on my desktop, on my laptop, on my other desktop. They're everywhere, right? There's too many people have access to it. Every time, I've had clients. I know how they give me access to their stuff. So I already know that we don't necessarily have a structure around this, right? You have a videographer who's sending you files. You have a VA who's doing things for you. You have access to all your accounts. You have all these people that are helping you. You got contractors and clients and share folders, and you got different people sharing with different folders, and you don't know what they have access to. There's no clean backup. And then everything depends on one login. Maybe you're sharing the login because no judgment. It's like, what are you going to do? If you are not familiar with this type of structure, how are you to know what to do? And even structures that I have in the past thought were very secure, they too have limitations. So it's a process that we need to have set up so that we have redundancy. We have a way to be able to have multiple copies, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. This is the villain. This is who we're up against, Lady Ghostly. She thrives when the scope is loose, access is shared, the structure is unclear, and she doesn't steal data. She makes it invisible. You can't see it. It's just gone. You have no idea because you're not thinking about that. You're busy building your business, right? But we have something for Lady Ghostly. We have a visioneer in the Crystal Ops universe that is none other than Scope Lock Sentinel. This is the guardian of your data and the guardian of boundaries. And this is where we get our strength. The protector of control, being able to control access to our data and to prevent loss by enforcing scope, that people have access to what they need, not everything, right? So the core principle we're working here is if everything is shared, then nothing is protected. If everything is shared, if you go out and you share a folder because you don't know what else to do, and you share your Google Workspace folder with someone, you don't know what all they have access to. Now, most people, we're not expecting that it's a people problem. We're just looking at having access. But the reality is that we can have loss in this case where we don't have boundaries, okay? The root problem is most small business data loss. It is not malicious. Like I said, it's not somebody out trying to get you. It's just innocent. It's structural. And what we have to look at, I feel like I missed something here. Okay. So, and what we're looking at is the first line that we want to draw within our business is internal versus external. There's some things that should never go outside of my business. And there are other things where I have to have people help me. I would love to be able to think I can hold it all down myself, but I have had to admit that I cannot hold it all down myself. I need someone else to help me. And there are areas that, quite frankly, I just don't want to do. I want someone to help me, right? But I need to have a way to share what they need and not share what they don't need, and not put my data at risk any more than necessary to get these things done, right? So when we talk about internal, we're talking about your internal workspace, and that's going to be your strategy documents, your IP. I have a ton of IP, your systems, and your records. These are things that should never be shared under any circumstances outside of your business, right? And then we have an external workspace that is collaboration only. In other words, there's limited access. So the way I structured this in my business is I have 2 Google Workspace accounts. One is expressly internal, one is only for collaboration. And the one that is internal, I have went so far as to set at the account level that nothing can be shared outside of my domain, right? And then for the external workspace, it's still limited in what is needed for the task. So this is where client shared drives are, not shared folders under a master, because not sure if you're aware, but if you have Google Workspace, even if you have an individual subfolder that only is shared with, say, a client, maybe that's the way you manage your clients, there is still a possibility of potential for compromise if by accident someone shares a top level folder, then you will have granted access across clients, which is my own personal nightmare that I would hate to have happen, right? And so there's no touching between them either. Like there is nothing in the internal that gets shared to the external, that hooks into the external. Everything is permissioned. Okay. So this is me maybe being a little extra, but I'm really sensitive about this. So then the folder structure is a boundary, right? So messy folders blur ownership, shared folders invite accidents, and structure protects by default. So when I set up a structure and I say, okay, this is internal only, you have to have a Get Crystallized Agency domain or email address in order to access anything within here. And in order to share anything within this folder structure, you have to have that. Versus in the client structure, there are individual shared drives for every client, which means you can't accidentally give someone top level access and then share across clients. That's a nightmare. Every client has their own domain, and then only it's temporary. So when you're sharing files, those files still get saved off to the internal drive because we're always protecting data. But the beauty of it is that if you want to say you're doing something for a client, in my case, say I'm implementing one of my done for you profit visibility solutions, and you have a graphic designer that you want to help you with some of your assets, or you have someone who's doing your email, who's writing your email messages for you. They can all have access to your shared drive, and you drive who gets permission. That's a lot different than having one workflow where everyone has access and having the potential risk of multiple people. And then we also put some archival guidelines around that. Okay. Anyway, I digress. Now I'm getting all nerded out. So if your drive is confusion, it's not because you're disorganized. It's the last thing to think about. Who founds a business? Who starts a business and is thinking about, oh, I wonder how I'm going to structure my phone. Nobody thinks about that, right? So it's not you. It's just now is time when you're scaling or getting ready to scale. Now's the time because when you're smaller, you can keep more in your head. But as you begin to grow and you get your team expands, now that's not so easy to keep track of. Now you need a structure to be able to distinguish and make sure to put those guardrails in place so only the right people have the information, and it's on a need to know basis, right? So it's just about control. The third party reality, contractors do not need your full drive. They do not need access to your internal systems. They do not need access to your client records. They only need access to what they need to do their job. And trust me, accidents happen. Here's a perfect, they need task specific access. So here's like a check for you to do right now. Just as you sit and you're listening to me, I want you to think about who has access to your data today. Now, in the environment we live in, you can have people, and not only in different buildings, but in different cities, states, and even countries, right? That have your data. How do you manage that? And then who shouldn't have access anymore? Can you think of someone who, like a year ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, was working for you and doing something, and you just never even thought about, taking away their access, right? And then who could delete something important? Like, what access have you given to them that they can actually delete some things? That's a little bit scary when you think about it. You're not going to think about it until it happens, and then it will be too late, right? It's happened to me. I personally, not even a third party, I personally have deleted some stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that. I had 2 files, they looked the same. I was like, oh, I don't need that. And next thing you know. So anyway, if you can't answer this question quickly, like, oh, okay, yeah, I know 3 people, then that's the risk. It's not the people. It's, do you know where your data is? Okay. The hidden risk is loose access creates a large blast radius. What does that mean? That means that if something gets lost, there is a wider range of potential places where it could be, right? Versus if you know that you granted access for 1 or 2 people, or you know who you granted access to, and you can easily revoke that access, it's a smaller blast radius, right? Structure contains the damage when something goes wrong versus, you know what? I really don't know. Okay. This happens. Imagine this. Contractor, you hire somebody to come in and help you out. They're going to clean up your folder structure because, oh my gosh, you just haven't had a chance to look at it. You know there's a lot of client records in there and stuff, and you're trusting them to take care of it because they're experienced. 122 files gone, deleted, client files, launch delayed. Now what? No backup, right? You thought it was being backed up on your workspace, but once you delete something on workspace, and it's been 30 days and it empties out your deleted, your trash folder, guess what? You are out of luck. It's not malicious. This is not something that happened because somebody was trying to do you in. It's because, it just happens. Stuff happens, right? But it could have been preventable with a proper strategy. Okay. So backup is not optional. If it's something that you need, you got to back it up. It's just no there. And I know this is not a popular topic. When I was in corporate for over 20 years and I led projects, and there's three things nobody ever wants to talk about. One is meetings. Nobody ever wants to have meetings. Nobody ever wants to look at the project plan and get on and put any dates on anything. And no one ever wants a folder structure. They just say, oh, I can just search it up because, everything's searchable. But everything is searchable is not always true, because if you don't have a proper naming convention, how do you even know what to search for? I digress. Anyway, the point is you need to back up. So let's talk about the phone again. I shared at the beginning about, my phone situation, but your phone is part of your business. You're not running your business without your phone. Your photos, your notes, your recordings, your passwords, your business lives in your phone right now, right? And we have a lot of different cloud services, and we have places where data goes. So you could cobble together some things, but if it's not backed up, it's a risk. It's fragile, right? So if your phone disappeared tomorrow, what would you lose? Would you lose anything? Now, I will say not as much as you would have lost 10 years ago, for sure. But and as long as you have your backups, it's not as much as you might have lost, but it still is at risk, because if something happens to I use Google Drive a lot. Say it's Google Drive and something is deleted on Drive. Now what? Right? So this is going beyond that, putting proper redundancy in, right? So this is, for me, the 3-2-1 rule makes sense for me. So 3 copies of critical data, 2 different locations, and one offline, one offline external backup. So 3 copies. So I've got a hard drive that sits on my desk. I've got the online version, which is your workspace setup. And then I also have a portable that I use that's accessible to me at any time. And then one stored off location, right? Big companies do this all the time. You need to do it too. And the reason is, if something happened, your house set on fire, your business set on fire, whatever, something happened, you don't have access right away. Something happened with the cloud. Someone deleted some files. Anything could happen. And having that redundancy, you can sleep a little bit easier by knowing that the data is available somewhere. Okay. So here's a little founder reality check. If your files disappear tomorrow, what stops immediately? For me, any project that's ongoing that needs to have files that have been provided by a client, right? So any active work, what does that look like for you? If you do, for example, is it client records? Is it client files that they've shared with you to do tax returns if you're an accountant, or documents? And a lot of different companies have they have industry specific tools for this, but again, that's just another place where you don't have custody of your data. Okay, who gets blocked? And then what can't be rebuilt? There are some things that you cannot rebuild. I didn't realize I use Canva all the time. But did you know that you can't actually get your native file, your files are not actually native anywhere on Canva? You actually need to download those files and save them somewhere, and save yourself a link so you can access them in case something happens, because you don't have access to, or you don't have custody of all the creative that you've been doing out there. Just food for thought. Now, I love Canva, right? But I'm just saying. Um, and this isn't about fixing everything. You don't need perfect systems. I'm not saying that. I am a little, out there in particular, but you don't have to have perfect systems. You just need clearer boundaries and you need fewer unknowns, right? There's enough stuff going on keeping you busy that you just need fewer unknowns. Now, when this is handled, you're not guessing who has access to your stuff. You know exactly who it is. And if something happened and you decided maybe you fell out with your social media person and you don't want them to have access to your stuff anymore, you just cut them out. You revoke their access. Done. No problem. The paid ads person. Maybe you want to have more than one person working on your paid ads. Okay, done. You got a place to give them access. A mistake doesn't stop the business. You're not going to one little mistake is not gonna. My grandma used to say, "Well, monkey don't stop no show," right? So at least you would have your files someplace else where you could easily access them. Either if it's on your offline drive or someplace else, you would have access. And then losing a file doesn't create panic. You're like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I got it. I'll get it from this drive right here." And growth feels steadier and not fragile. You're not thinking, "Oh my gosh, this is at risk. This project is at risk. I don't know where things are. This person left my project and now I don't have access to any files." All that gets eliminated, right? You always have access to your files. Now, I'm going to wrap this up. One thing to do this week is identify one folder that should never be shared. Just one. Identify one person who no longer needs access to your files, that probably still has access. And then identify one thing you absolutely cannot afford to lose and set up a backup for it. Now, if you want a second set of eyes, now I don't offer a product to do this. I don't do this as a service for anyone. This is a public service announcement based on the pain that I've been through related to, and really, this is something that's kind of had been keeping me up at night until I put some boundaries around it. So, but if you want a second set of eyes, you can schedule a Clarity Connect chat with me, and I'm happy to kind of talk it through with you. It's no pressure. It's just clarity for sure. But I know this is not something that's commonly made available for people. It's not something that many founders even think about or talk about. And it's something I have done that I'm happy to share with you the way I've approached it. Again, I'm not a cybersecurity expert. I'm just a founder like you who's run up against a scaling risk, I will call it, related to data redundancy and access to my data and my files. Okay. So next week, Private Visibility Lab, we're talking about why you're still the glue, even though you have systems. You have systems in place, but you still don't feel like you can walk away from a thing. This is what we're talking about. The hidden costs of systems that don't talk to each other. The hidden cost systems that don't talk to each other. If your business only works when you're around, you're in the middle, then you don't have systems, you have software. And there is a difference. So with that, just one final note, I want to make sure that you register for future sessions. So registration gets you access to all future reminders and replays and resources. Okay. As this series continues to go and grow, and it will, I'll be sharing more detailed information. And so this is going to be in the form of different resources and templates and things of that nature. And so in order to get access to that resource vault, the Profit Visibility Resource Vault, you will need to be registered. So if today helped you see your business differently and you want to stay plugged into the Profit Visibility Lab, register for reminders, slides, and replays at crystlz.co/lab-register. So with that, if there are no questions, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up. It has been my pleasure to work with you here. And again, if you have questions, feel free to drop them even in the comments after. If you want to go ahead and schedule that Clarity Connect call because you just want to talk to somebody else and bounce ideas off on how you can secure your data for your business, then go ahead and message me and I will leave a link down below for the calendar for the Clarity Connect chat. I hope you had found value in this session, and I'll talk to you next time on the Profit Visibility Lab.